Hi, my name is Annabel, and thank you for joining me on this talk today on throwing it out there, how to find an audience for underwater museum archaeology. I'd also like to thank the Council of British Archaeology for allowing me to do this talk today. How it started, I started doing my master's at Durham University from the years 2022 to 2023 in museum and artefact studies. One of the first weeks that I was doing my master's, I was sat down with 11 other students, and the idea was that we were going to have an exhibition in 9 months' time. All we were given was that it has to be focused around the topic of ritual, and that was it. From then, we had to plan everything that we wanted in the exhibition. So that was object selection, text for the text panels, marketing, learning engagement, how we wanted the space to look. So basically, and any other narratives we wanted to tell as well were all our decision. But the aims of the research, I took it on myself to do audience evaluation and to understand how the audience and their needs would be met during the exhibition. A really lovely quote from the Museum Galleries of Scotland explains that audience evaluation is vital for museum spaces and exhibitions. Also, kind of additional to that is that museums have now not just become a place that house museum and historical objects of significance. They have become learning and social hubs for a lot of people as well. And they're quite integral to become a place of social function. So it was interesting for me to find what an audience needs and wants were from an exhibition space as well. We also wanted to figure out whether they would be interested in the topics that we were proposing. So, like I said, ritual was kind of our key focus, but outside of that, we had other narratives that we were telling as well, such as the different time periods we were looking at, which were Roman, Saxon, and medieval, as well as the local history aspect. Were people interested in knowing more about County Durham and County Durham's rivers and how integral that was to ritual? So, and were the objects we picked also engaging? You can see some of them on this poster here. So we've got like a spearhead, brooches, Roman rings, kind of all sorts, pilgrim tokens as well. We really wanted to understand if they would be the audience that we were wanting to look at would be interested in these sorts of like tokens and also these objects, and to understand what if the narratives we were telling would be understood through these objects that we picked, and would they be engaging to an audience? And also, did people understand the term ritual? In archaeology, it's used quite a lot, the term ritual, but it was something that we wanted to understand is, did people actually understand what that meant? So, important things to consider were the methodologies that we were going to use to collect this data. Took it upon myself to create surveys. So, we had two kind of different branches of surveys. Family surveys to understand from a parent or guardian's perspective what they wanted their young person or child to understand from a museum environment, but also this kind of more simplified version of that we would ask children to see if they kind of understood the terms of ritual, what they liked themselves in the museum space rather than just what their parent or guardian quite liked. We also used focus groups. So we took on a children's group that comes to the Museum of Archaeology in Durham called Durham Explorers, DAX. They were very integral, and because that was the audience that we were really wanting to hit, of like young 5 to 12-year-olds that are really interested in archaeology as well. We didn't bother with the methodology to use visitor tracking in the space. So this is kind of like when you understand how people move through a gallery space. There wasn't really much point us doing this at all, because it was a corridor that we were using as part of the exhibition space. So kind of picking the correct methodologies was also important as well. Ethical approval and consent and code of conduct is also very important to make sure that your study is ethical. It's quite a lengthy process. We were interviewing and collecting data from children, so to make sure that the ethical approval was there and correct. Open and closed questions were also quite important. We wanted to still get opinions, but to make sure that they weren't too vast. So many open questions we used were kind of, what do you like about this space? Were there any key points that you liked about the space? What didn't you like about this space, to understand then how we can implement the things that people liked within our exhibition? Closed questions as well were quite important. So we did some closed questions of maybe using number scales. For example, how much do you like this sort of activity, and seeing how popular it was. The best questions to ask to achieve goals, like kind of similarly to that point above about open and close questions, it was to making sure that we were asking questions that would actually help aid us. So we did ask questions about ages, because that was beneficial to understand like what kind of age groups we would be finding within the space and how we could best cater to them. And also having enough time to collect the data as well. So, similarly said, the methods that we use, so focus groups, for example, we use for the DAX Durham Explorer group, which are 5 to 12-year-olds. They got shown objects as well to see how engaged they were and how interested they were in the objects that we were putting forward, and also whether they understood ritual as well. The surveys also were very helpful as well to understand how well people understood the term ritual, as well as were people interested in an exhibition about local Durham history. And also on the spot chat. So these were the surveys with younger children within the space. We kind of wanted to make sure that all these questions were being asked about what they liked and disliked, to make sure, because we were one of the last rooms that they would see within the museum, we kind of wanted to make sure that the exhibition space was as engaging as possible. Museum fatigue wouldn't be an issue for us. So how were the findings presented? As I kind of similarly said before, we used numbers to understand what was the most popular answers, what were the least popular answers. So this was one of the ways that we kind of portrayed our findings was in bar charts. So, for example, as you can kind of see in this one here, touchscreens were very popular, as well as walking trails as well. So, really, the kind of very engaging activities that you can provide. Another one we disclosed as well, and how we kind of presented the findings was through word clouds. This was really helpful to see like most popular answers. So, for example, this was one I think also put to the parents and guardians of the children's focus group of what does ritual mean to you, and like what do you think ritual means. So how the findings were displayed is very much an interesting one. So when we asked in the parent surveys, there was a question saying, what did your young person, your child like most about the museum and this place? And it kept on coming up with dressing up. But we hadn't even thought about that. So we're like, oh gosh, let's get something sorted for that. So we kind of came up with a dressing up corner kind of over here, and I painted the mirror and painted the little dressing up bit as well. Timelines proved very popular with the Guardian group, so we made sure to interpret into the design of our panels a timeline of kind of all the objects as well. So if you can see also in this top paragraph, as I kind of said, that there was a bit of a do they fully understand what ritual is? We tried to make it perfectly clear up here that ritual is not just something that's from the past, it's also can be used in the present context as well. So it's just here for you in this top paragraph as well of what kind of forms of rituals there are that can also be used in the modern day to make the content relatable. So the learning and reflection sort of parts of this exercise was time. And I said I would come back to this point. Time was something for us because of the ethical process. We didn't realize how long it was going to take us. And we had 3 months to kind of collect up all this data, and kind of 5 weeks when we had collected all the data to think what kind of is happening. So a few things were chopped and changed. So that kind of also leads into flexibility, and also kind of opinions of what people were saying as well. So the flexibility sort of thing is like we had to be flexible with the opinions that were coming out to us from the public and also from the surveys that we had collected, making sure that the exhibition we had listened to opinions and made sure that we had curated and also cultivated a space where those opinions and questions had been listened to. And it kind of led me into my next project on how our museum exhibition colour is significant to a visitor's experience. So that is my talk over. Thank you very much for listening. My email I've put here, I currently work at Showtown, at the Museum of Fun and Entertainment New Museum in Blackpool. So that would be my work email here. If you do need any more questions or anything answering about audience evaluation, maybe the email to catch me on there. And then also Museum Communications 2023 email is still up and running. So if you have more questions about the overall project and what happened there, this email still is open and manned. So you can ask your questions there as well if you have any. Unfortunately, the exhibition Throwing It Out There is closed now. It closed November last year. However, the online exhibition is still available for your viewing pleasure. So if you'd like to watch it there and or look over it, just the web address is just there for your viewing pleasure as well. But apart from that, thank you very much for joining me today. Hopefully I will see you soon.